Good evening, and we begin at 5 with Portland police responding in force to a downtown block that's become known as an open-air fentanyl market after significant dealing, drug use, and fatal overdoses, which drew the attention of Oregon's governor. Officers swept the building early this morning, and crews quickly boarded it up. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Laurel Porter. The response around the Washington Center building is all part of an effort, officials say, to boost public safety in a corner of a city that's quickly become notorious. Mike Benner has our update.
As one neighbor told me, this building, sandwiched between Southwest 4th and 5th and Washington and Harvey Milk, was once the jewel of downtown Portland, but it has gone downhill exponentially in recent years. The city has taken notice and is now taking action.
Small room, quick.
Video provided by the Portland Police Bureau shows officers inside the Washington Center building early Wednesday morning. The officers are going room to room looking for anyone who may have snuck into the vacant building.
Keep going. You're doing great.
All the way.
Any places not attended on a regular basis, they'll congregate.
David Mitchell lives above the Rialto, so he walks by the Washington Center building often. He says there's nothing pleasant about it.
Oh, dear Lord. Drug use, dealing, this is like the media's been saying, this is drug central.
And that's not an exaggeration. Police say during the first weekend in April, they responded to nearly a dozen overdose calls in downtown Portland, some of which were fatal. A majority of those overdose calls were near Washington Center, which does not surprise this man.
I've seen a lot of drug use on this building, and I mean a lot.
Bob Williams has been photographing the evolution of the Washington Center for years.
Perfect timing with the workers down here. Awesome.
But he recently noticed a dark shift in the photos he captured.
I have pictures of spoons, broken glass, stolen prescription pill bottles all over the place around here. So, unfortunately, it's a sad state of Portland right now.
The city hopes that by clearing out the building and boarding it up, which was happening by late Wednesday morning, that just maybe this corner of the city can reclaim a little bit of its former self. What's next for this building is really anybody's guess, but you can count on us to stay on top of it. Reporting in downtown Portland, I'm Mike Benner for KGW News.
The Biden administration today labeled a dangerous form of fentanyl called tranq as a, quote, emerging threat. This decision requires the administration to develop a federal plan to address the crisis. Tranq is made of mixing fentanyl with an animal tranquilizer. Officials say it's fueling the country's addiction crisis, leading to more overdoses, and some users are also getting a rash that can cause skin ulcers and even amputation. Tranq has already been found in 48 states, including Oregon and Washington.
In our homeless crisis tonight, a big change is coming to how the Rose City removes camps. That's a process that's known on the street as sweeps. Now, those efforts have been led by the city's rapid response team, though now Portland Street Response, which answers some mental health calls instead of police, has been asked to broaden its mandate. Blair Best explains.
This homeless camp tucked under the Morrison Bridge looks as if it's been lived in for weeks, but within the rubble is a green tag, a dreaded sign for homeless people like Daniel.
As soon as you see the post on your area, the paper says like you got to get out of here in X amount of days, the whole anxiety in the area goes up.
It's an illegal campsite notice from the city, giving the homeless people 10 days to move, an anxiety that Daniel has learned to avoid.
I'm used to stay ready to move.
One pallet and a jacket is all he has, making it easy for him to relocate Wednesday morning.
I just don't collect too many things while I'm out here. I don't get too attached to them.
Unlike the homeless people in a camp across the street, One Portland's rapid response team is on day 3 of clearing. Soon, mental and behavioral health specialists from Portland Street Response will be required to provide support to homeless people during those sweeps.
Their involvement is addressing the mental health
crisis that is on scene at the same time.
Rick Graves is from Portland Fire and Rescue, which oversees Portland street response.
You know, it's an ever-changing landscape that we're addressing. We're learning how to deal with it.
A group at Portland State University reviews Portland street response every so often. In their most recent review, they say that Portland street response should never be used to carry out sweeps, enforce camping bans, or require people go into shelter, saying that it could jeopardize their trust with homeless people.
They're still not involved in citywide sweeps. They're involved in a mental health crisis situation that is occurring at a location where a sweep is also occurring. They are not actively involved in any of the sweep procedures.
Yet it's the sweeps themselves that can cause homeless people to have a mental health crisis. And one of the reasons people like Daniel are always on the move.
I try and stay ready if I had to imagine myself having like half an hour to pack up and carry my stuff.
Portland Fire Bureau Commissioner Renee Gonzalez tells us in an email that having Portland street response workers at the sweeps supports their mission while also supports transitioning homeless people away from unsanctioned camping. Blair Best, KGW News.
And we'll be watching how it goes. In Salem today, the second of 3 new homeless shelters opened its doors. The Arches Lodge on Northeast Fisher Road will provide beds for mostly veterans and families. There's a laundry room, a community area, as well as connections to mental health resources. Now, funding for both Arches Lodge and Yaquina Hall, which held a ribbon cutting last week, comes from state-backed Project Turnkey. Here's Salem's mayor.
We have people living on our streets and dying on our streets, and it's projects like this that are going to help us in that.
Well, the final shelter is going to be at the Salem Navigation Center. That's on Southeast 22nd. All 3 will serve almost 2,000 people in Polk and Marion counties.
And speaking of Marion County, a very special transitional housing center just recently opened in Woodburn. It's only for men, specifically fathers, who have struggled with drug addiction. They get on-site treatment as well as child care so they can have visits or live with their children. Bryant Clerkley's in the newsroom now, and you toured it today, Bryant. It's called His Place, and that's because it's a companion to a similar housing center.
Yeah, Laurel, Her Place is specifically for women. It's been in Marion County for 25 years. About 2 months ago, His Place opened, and now 3 fathers who struggled with drug addiction are now living in the house. The house has room for 7 dads and their kids, and the program is about 6 months long.
Inside this house in Woodburn, 3 fathers who have struggled with drug addiction are trying to improve their lives. It's called His Place, and it provides substance use disorder treatment services and transitional housing with on-site child care for the dads. 27-year-old Freddie Rosales has pictures of his 18-month-old son Mason all over his room. Rosales had a meth addiction. He's been clean for more than 2 months and wants to use his time in the house to become a better father.
It's real important because if not, then I would have maybe lost my child. I would have, and after this program, they're actually helping me getting a housing voucher and moving me into an apartment, hopefully.
The His Place project cost around $750,000. 7 fathers, along with their children, will be able to live inside this home. His Place is meant to give fathers a home where they can support each other and feel connected to other men dealing with the same issues. Staying sober is top priority. Jeremy Musselman struggled with meth addiction for a long time and was in and out of jail. Now he's trying to get his kids back.
Instead of letting him get lost in DHS, I can have him here, and it's going to open up doors, and hopefully it speeds up the process of getting my other son back too. And I'm just trying to take care of my kids. They deserve it.
Outreach workers help the fathers find stable housing once they leave the program. 20-year-old Alexander Salgado Maya struggled with fentanyl addiction for years before getting clean a month ago. Now he's thankful for the support.
You just never think that you really have an issue until you just realize that you're losing everything around you, and it's a horrible experience, and I don't wish it upon even my worst enemy.
The children who live in the home must be under the age of 5. An expansion could come in the future with a home where couples can work on their recovery together. Laurel?
Well, we wish them all the best in the future. Thank you, Bryant. It appears Legacy Mount Hood Medical Center in Gresham will reopen its birthing center, according to a letter to staff from its president. This became a big story when it closed March 17th without the necessary approval from the Oregon Health Authority. At the time, Legacy says it shut down the center because of staffing issues and because fewer people were having babies there. But locals pushed back, angry about losing the resource. Legacy's president says they're still working on the details, but will eventually submit their reopening plan to the Oregon Health Authority.
Well, it is an off-election year, but that does not mean there aren't important measures to consider, with the deadline to register to vote now less than 2 weeks away. Daisy Caballero's here. Daisy, you're focusing on Multnomah County and the city of Portland this evening. So what is on the May ballot?
David, there's a seat on the Multnomah County Commissioner up for grabs. 3 local ballot measures and local races for school boards, water and fire districts, just to name a few. Let's start with the most controversial and talked about measure. It's Measure 26238 for Multnomah County voters. It's an adjustable countywide capital gains tax on profits for selling real estate or investments that everyone would pay regardless of income level. It would provide free legal representation to people facing eviction. Next is Gresham's Measure 26239, which would increase property taxes by more than 3%. This measure would allow the city of Gresham to add 26 new fire and police positions, keep 13 temporary positions, and increase mental health crisis response. And lastly, the city of Portland's ballot Measure 26240, which would continue a levy people already pay to help fund early childhood programs and help fight child hunger.
You know, it's the local elections where your vote matters more. Fewer people tend to vote, and so each vote is amplified all the more by casting it.
Now, 3 candidates are running for the Multnomah County Commissioner seat. Ana de la Rocchio, a Latina nonprofit consultant, Albert Kaufman, a marketing professional, and Julia Brim Edwards, a small business owner in Southeast Portland. All 3 registered as nonpartisan. David, Laurel.
Thank you, Daisy. And still